Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Meditation and Spiritual Practice. This week, I want to share a really powerful and beautiful teaching from the Baal Shem Tov on this week's Parsha, where he's commenting on the plagues. And as we know in the story of Exodus, the plagues are this incredibly dramatic narrative tool experience that not only is something that's an amazing part of the story, but is something that has reached into our yearly ritual observance of the Seder as we recite them, maybe even dipping our finger in wine or juice, and for each plague of a drop of blood in some way. The teaching around that is to say that even though these horrible plagues happened to the Egyptians, causing so much suffering, we don't want to see our redemption or our liberation have to result in suffering, even though it sometimes does. So the rabbis wanted to acknowledge through that custom in some way to do that. Now, one of the things about the story of the plagues, and just very briefly, the children of Israel are slaves in Egypt, and Moses connects with God taps Moses really through the burning bush to be the redeemer, to help God, to be the mouthpiece for God to take the enslaved Israelites out of Egypt. And of course, when Moses goes ahead and approaches Pharaoh to do it, Pharaoh says no, as God predicted. And then God sends a succession of plagues, supernatural kind of disasters, water turning into blood, frogs coming out of everywhere, lice, hail, all kinds of things coming until increasingly, the pressure goes on to the Egyptians, and until Pharaoh finally lets the people go. Now, one of the questions that the commentators have on this, which all of us who think a little bit more deeper into the story, is why all the plagues? God is all powerful. God wants to take the children of Israel out of Egypt, out of slavery. God could just do it like that, just like God promised. Why this whole drama of these successive plagues that cause so much suffering, right? We can probably know that, and we can look at this even in our current, situation with the Israeli-Gaza conflict of, why does it have to be that there's so much suffering that has to come involved here? Like, why not just do it like this? And one of the teachings for the story of Exodus that the rabbis teach is that it was important for both Egypt and the Israelites to know God. It wasn't just about the liberation. It was about da'at. It was about knowledge of the one. And both of them, both the Israelites and the Egyptians, both did not have this knowledge of the presence of God, of this presence that unites all of life. They were both peoples were deeply stuck in idolatry, in the belief of Pharaoh as the god, all of this. And so it wasn't just enough to take them out. God could take them out, but through sheer, force, power, but they would still, it ultimately would not be able to change their way, their life, all of this. And so somehow the plagues were necessary. So here's the teaching from the Baal Shem Tov. He says that what the Egyptians experienced as plagues, the Israelites experienced as an uplifting revelation. What the Israelites experienced as plagues, the Egyptians experienced as an uplifting revelation. That the phenomenon of what happened, those processes that went on, was one phenomenon, but was experienced by the different groups in different ways, right? For the Egyptians, it was suffering, it was horrible. For the Israelites, they didn't experience not only any suffering, they didn't necessarily even experience the suffering of the Egyptians in that time. All they experienced was God's presence in powerful, powerful ways. And so, the Baal Shem, one of the great insights of Hasidism in how they read the Torah, and this was kind of a springboard from Kabbalah, was that they said that all of the Torah can also apply, these stories can apply to each individual, meaning each of us have in us a Mitzri, a Egyptian perspective on life, or a narrow, Mitzrayim, Egypt comes from the word Meitzar, meaning narrow. So we have a narrow perspective on life, or we can have a Israelite perspective on life, which is an expansive one that is engaged with God, with wrestling with God, Yisrael. So this is another way of teaching a very core concept in Hasidism, which is to speak about two modes of consciousness that we can experience as human beings. One is mochin dikatnut, or small mind, or limited consciousness or awareness. And the other is mochin digalut, or expanded or great mind. What we're experiencing, whether we're looking at the world in a narrow way or an expansive way, is independent of the events that are unfolding in the world. So from a narrow perspective, mochin dikatnut, the phenomenon, or actually the way in the Torah, they're not called plagues. We call them plagues. They're not called plagues. They're called otot v'niflaot, signs and wonders, right? Signs and wonders. So these otot v'niflaot are experienced as plagues by the Egyptians, and because that is referring to that constricted mind. And for the Israelites, they are mochin digadlut. They are it's expanded mind, expanded consciousness, where it is otot v'niflaot, signs and wonders of God's presence. So this story is really speaking about a mode of awareness. What kind of consciousness do we bring to the present moments of our lives as events unfold? Right? Events that unfold are phenomenon. They're phenomenon. And like the experience in the story, all events that unfold are unfolding of God's presence, of divine reality, of energy, of creation, of life, of all of those things. And sometimes that unfolding causes pain and suffering. Sometimes it causes new change and openings. It can have all kinds of effects, the unfolding of moment-to-moment reality. How we perceive them determines whether they are plagues or whether they are uplifting revelations. And really it depends on, are we experiencing the moment from a narrow perspective? And what's a narrow perspective? It's one that brings expectations of how things should be to the current moment. And if the moment doesn't fit according to those expectations, we may experience suffering, plagues, difficulty. A expanded perspective is one in which we are open to the moment, to the unfolding of the moment. It doesn't mean that the moment is not going to evoke strong emotions in us, whether that's grief or anger or joy or happiness. We may have the full range of human emotions based on the events that unfold. But expanded consciousness means there's a sense of trust and acceptance that this is happening in the way that it needs to, and we need to be present and engage with that moment in a way that that is true to the divine unfolding in each of us. And so when we experience something from expanded consciousness, remember, an uplifting revelation, according to the Baal Shem Tov, does not always mean that it's going to feel good. An uplifting revelation doesn't mean that that we're going to be ecstatic about whatever's happening. But revelation means that there's new depth that is being revealed. We are experiencing reality in a more true way, a more expansive way, whatever that is. And it calls on us to bring a new degree of presence to the moment. So all of this, and this is part of what our practice is in meditation, is how do we relate to our moment-to-moment experience from a place of expanded consciousness, of mochin digadlut, so that as things unfold, not only in our meditation practice, but also in life, instead of resisting it, of saying it doesn't fit into how I want things to be or how things should be, and so I push against it and I hide and I experience it as plagues, instead, I am able to bring my full self to it, engage, to say, this is what's happening right now. God's presence is here too. And how do I see deeper into what's needed in the moment? So let's find a comfortable place to sit, position to sit for a period of time where we don't have to move around too much. You've kind of settled in. You can adjust your body so that as much as possible you're sitting on top of your spine. That might mean, for some people, sitting on the edge of your chair with your knees a little bit lower than your hips can allow one to sit on the top of their spine. Again, there's no particular posture or way that you have to hold the position, but usually it's easier to stay present and aware moment to moment if you are able to sit with your back straight, not rigid straight, but comfortably erect. And that is sometimes easiest when you are on the top of your spine, which can be facilitated by your knees. And however, whether you're sitting in a chair or on the floor, your knees being lower than your hips. Again, just another note on posture, while that is that can be a recommended position for those who can take it comfortably. What's most important is that you are sitting in a position that has less discomfort as possible, so that that strong sensation isn't constantly pulling at your attention. So that's the caveat. As you settle into your position and your body, your eyes closed, begin to notice the movement of breath, where the air enters the nostrils or the mouth. Notice how the body expands on the inhale to make room for the breath. And notice that moment where the inhale switches to an exhale and the air leaves the body. Noticing again where the exhale reaches its maximum length and switches to an inhale. Following that cycle of breath, the expanding and the contracting of the body. as you notice breath. And really what we're bringing is a decision, a real firm decision to be present here and now with what is unfolding moment to moment. And we know that the breath is the most steady and consistent movement of the moment that we can make sure to anchor our awareness. Really feel the strength of your decision to stay present with breath. It really is a constant decision, as there's lots for the mind to pay attention to. Just for these first few moments, just feel the strength of your decision to just be with breath. Now decide to let your awareness encompass a bit more than breath. Now let yourself be aware of the position of your body, the shape of your body, the pressure of your bottom on the chair, your feet on the floor, the distance of the bottom of your spine and the top of your head, the way your arms hang out of your shoulder sockets, the resting of the head on the shoulders, and the breath. So now you're just letting yourself be with all of these aspects of your moment-to-moment experience, breath and body. Letting your awareness be soft, open, able to receive the sensations in the body, the tingling, the buzzing, places where there's more heat, more tightness, more freedom. And you can let your awareness expand a bit more. So not only are you with the breath and the body, but you're also with the sounds around you, in your room, beyond your room. Just letting all of it, body sensation, sound, breath, even any thoughts and images, just float and be present all at once in your attention. And as you're present to all of the objects in your awareness, the symphony of voices, breath, body, sounds, thoughts, images, begin to notice the space that all of them float in. That you can perceive breath or body sensations because there is a space that those phenomenon float in unfold in. And as you begin to let in more the space, the ground that all of the phenomenon arise in, notice how that space has no boundary, how that space flows out in every direction. That space goes in every direction and no direction. At the same time, it's just the ever-present reality that underlies every moment. When we begin to put our attention on the space, on the ever expansive, eternal and infinite space in which all phenomenon arises, there is freedom, no boundary. And in that place and space, hamakom, there is space for everything. Everything that arises plays its part in the moment. I'm going to be quiet for a period of time. And as you practice being present with what is, moment by moment, make sure that awareness of breath is part of your experience. And that also is the space that holds everything. See if you can be present with both ends of your moment-to-moment experience. The movement of breath, the space that holds it all, and everything in between.